Tilakanagata, page 73. Sabbe Sankara Anicca. Sound familiar? Ti yada panyaya passati yatta nibbindati dukke esamaggo visuddhiya. Sabbe Sankara dukkati yada panyaya passati yatta nibbindati dukke esamaggo visuddhiya. Sabba dhamma anatta ti yada panyaya passati atta nibindati dukke samaggo visuddhiya. Verses on the three characteristics. Impermanent is all that is conditioned. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. This is the path to purity. Unsatisfactory is all that is conditioned. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. This is the path to purity. Without self are all dhammas. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. This is the path to purity. So, these three characteristics are, when you say that you see with Vipassana, right? When you see with wisdom, with insight, you see these three characteristics, right? That's what these lines are saying. When seen with wisdom, one naturally turns away from suffering, right? When seen that this thing is impermanent, and in the past, I've attached to this thing, I've attached to this way of thinking, this way of understanding, due to my misperceptions and my delusions and my ignorance. But now I see doing so is just causing me suffering. So why don't I let go? Right? Why don't I not hold on to this so hard? Right? That's what the wisdom comes in. The wisdom is not magically you just feel like, oh, okay, no. The wisdom is you actually see, oh, all this thing that I've been doing all these years, maybe even all these lifetimes. Geez, it's almost kind of like, if you're older, think about yourself when you were in your 20s, right? I'm sure I'm not the only one that's like, oh my God, I can't believe I was like that in my 20s, right? It's the same thing with wisdom gained from the practice. It's like, how did I not see this all this time? You didn't see it because of your delusion, because of your ignorance. This is why our delusion, our ignorance, and our craving are what cause our suffering. But when you see these three things, everything is impermanent, unstable, undependable. When held on, when grasped, when expecting something to not be, to be permanent, stable, and dependable, we create our own suffering. And we do this in large part because of our ideas of self, our ideas of permanent soul. Right? These three things are all interconnected. What else is seeing with Vipassana? When you see the arise, Buddha says things arise, they persist for a time with alteration, and then they cease. But what's persist for a time with alteration? Well, when you came into this world, you were like this, and then you became like this, and then as you get older, you start coming down a little bit like this, right? That's alteration. You could live for 100 years. You persist for 100 years, but you're changing and altering that whole time, right? So that is also, what is that? That's impermanence. It's not self, right? So that is also seeing with Vipassana. See the rise and fall of things. Right? What else is also seeing with Vipassana? The gratification, the danger, and the escape. when you see the gratification in grasping onto impermanent things. Very pleasurable, very pleasant experiences. But then that experience turns to suffering. And that's when you see the downside, the danger. And if you've seen deeply enough with wisdom the gratification and the danger, then you know the escape is letting go. The cessation of that very craving. Right? So that's what these lines are telling us. When you see the three characteristics, when you see with Vipassana, Vipassana means to see. V means to, it can be an intensifier. It means, so you could say see deeply or see through, right? See very deeply, understand. Right? And another word, Pali word uses yatabhuta jnanadasana, which means to see things as they are with wisdom. Right? That's what the practice allows us to do. To see these three characteristics of existence. And indeed, this is actually, they're hard to see. Nobody says they're easy to see. But this is actually why the Buddha encourages us to practice samatha, to develop samatha in the mind, to develop samadhi practice. Why? Because in the fourth jhana, a lot of the junk and the gunk and the and the foggy glasses that we normally wear are temporarily cleared away. So it's actually much easier to see anicca, dukkha, and anatta. It's much easier to see the nature of reality, to see things as they are in this state. That's why the Buddha encourages us to get to that state, right? So that we can see deeply, so that we can supercharge our Vipassana, supercharge our ability to see deeply. Okay, friends, so we can reflect on these thoughts today, all day, on these three characteristics of existence and how we can practice to see them deeply and to start to let go of our suffering. With that, I wish you a very spiritually successful and peaceful day. Sukhi Hotu, may you be happy. Practice well and be well.